people manufactured these breakers, what they did is they falsified the information to the Consumer Protection Agency at that time.
Okay.
And what will happen is these breakers will refuse to trip. And if you overload, say like this particular circuit, and that breaker does not trip, then that wire will heat up and burn.
So this has been in for, safe to say, for about 40 years. Is there any...
In the 70s, so you're
right.
100% correct.
So I suppose the counter argument is, well, hey, we've had for 40 years of what you're concerned about now.
But
what's the problem?
The issue is you don't know if they're not tripping. That's the thing. If this wire or this circuit continually to overload, then you don't know that it's that. Now, if it was a breaker that was tripping all the time, then that would set off an alarm, and somebody say, oh yeah, we got a problem. But when it's a breaker that doesn't trip, and I had a house about 3 weeks ago, had a Federal Pacific, his hallway light caught on fire, and it burned. If it had not been for a metal box, it would have burned the house down. And the newer houses nowadays don't have the metal boxes. But what happened is it overheated, and the neutral wire and the hot circuit burned together, and it was feeding 120 volts all the way through his neutral system in the house.
So Stan, is there any solution other, well, are there...
Replacing the panel, that's the only thing you can do.
Is there no other solution?
Well, you can replace every one of the breakers, because they do make, there's a manufacturer that makes them, but the cost of replacing all these breakers would be more than replacing the panel.
And does each one of those have to be replaced? Do
Yes.
they all have to be replaced?
Yes,
There's none that are...
No, these are the problem right here. And this here, if you look up here and you look on the side here, this is the only manufacturer that made it. This is called a stab lock. Okay?
That there would...
Right there on that shiny and aluminum part right there.
Oh, that.
It's a stab lock.
Okay.
And that breaker actually stabs into that bus. And they're hard, very hard. If you pulled out half of these, you'd probably break some of them.
Okay.
But you see how this one's sticking out right here?
Yes.
That's because it's not in all the way. See? And here, I just pulled it. Well, there you go. It's not even in. And that's a stab lock breaker.
Why is it not in?
I don't know. It was not in earlier.
But I mean, is there something, if this gentleman buys the house, is there something he should be concerned about that is not in?
I would be concerned because it's a Federal Pacific panel. I mean, it's not just this one breaker. You got all these circuits here at Federal Pacific. Now, let's see. It won't go in. That's probably the reason why it's out. It's out. I'm not fooling with it.
Okay. All right.
So that's the problem with it. So what we would do is replace this whole panel, put a new panel in. It would be a Cutler hammer. The panels are guaranteed for life, and so are the breakers.
Okay. All right. Thanks very much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'll just shoot this to the other.
These are copper here on the house?
Well, these are all copper here.
Yeah.
Your bigger circuits here, which is here and here and here, here and here, those are aluminum.
Okay.
Now, as long as they're like this one here and this one here, they're going from the panel to like the dryer or the panel to the air conditioning, I wouldn't be highly concerned about them. You just want to make sure that the connections there are correct, because what happened is aluminum wiring was developed back when copper got real expensive back in the 70s. The same time these came out, and the problem was they mixed the wrong alloys, aluminum alloys at that time. Aluminum is actually safe. You just have to make the proper connections with them, and that's what they weren't doing. The big problem is if you get some, and that's what I was looking at when I was looking at these earlier. If you get some of these branch circuits here, that are mixed with copper and aluminum, then what happens is aluminum, that's why they make beer cans, Coke cans out of aluminum, because they heat up and cool down much quicker than copper does. So if you take and twist those two wires together, one's heating up and cooling down at a different rate than the other one. So when you have that happen, it makes a loose connection in there. And as it makes a loose connection, what it does is it builds up heat. When it builds up heat, that's when so the double whammy is if you've got aluminum wiring and you got a Federal Pacific panel, so you got aluminum wiring that's going bad, and you got a breaker that won't trip.
Okay.
Stan, if you were to replace this, would you put in all copper?
No, we would just check the connections on them. They're safe. Like I said again, the problem is when you make the connections with them. The wire itself is okay. It's just the connections on them, and they've actually come out with a piece that fits on aluminum within the last 3 years, 4 years. It's called Alumicon. It's a lot of apartment complexes that were built in this era are going back through the apartments because they've had so many apartment fires and retrofitting it. But all of his branch circuits are copper. So he's just got dedicated circuits.
Is there enough room to add circuits?
No, you can't add circuits to this.
Would a new one have the ability?
Oh,
to
absolutely.
circuit?
Yeah, I would never do that to anybody.
Okay.
If I put in, you got about 22, 23 circuits in here. The smallest one we put in would be a 30 circuit panel because you got an unfinished area here. If you wanted to finish this off or something like it, then you wouldn't have the ability to do that if I put in the same size panel.
Yeah, that's why.
Then you should come back and force with me. And I've seen electricians do that just so they can come back and change the panels.
Do it.
Yeah. But no, I would never do that. I would put you in a panel that would have at least 5 or 6, 7 extra circuits in them. Particularly any house that's got an unfinished area in it.
Cool.
Because this would be a nice area. You put a dehumidifier in here, and this could make a nice area for like a game room or something like that.
Yeah. That's what it looked full to me, but
It is full. But even again, you wouldn't want to go back and put this in here. Now this is a split bus panel, I'll tell you that. Which means your wires are coming in from here, from LG&E. That's your 2 main lugs coming in right there. It feeds down on this right here. All right, this section right here is fed off the top right here. So you got this circuit here that's going up. This is probably feeding electric heat or something like that. Yep. You got electric heat over there. So that's feeding your electric heat. Then you got washer, dryer, or a clothes dryer, air conditioner. Then this breaker here feeds the bottom part of this panel. So this panel here is on this breaker here. So if I flip this breaker here, it's going to turn off all these. Then these up here are fed for your appliances. Okay.
So like a hot water heater, would that have to be one of these larger ones?
A hot water heater is probably, yeah, it's going to be one of these here.
Okay.
Because it is electric.
Yeah, it's electric.
Yeah, so it's going to be, well, actually it looks like it's one of these here.
Okay.
It's one of these here.
Okay.
Okay? You could actually move this up to one of these up here, but what the electric rule is that you've got to be able to turn an electric panel off with less than 6 throws or less. Okay? That's the reason why you got split bus panel.
Okay.
Because you don't really have a main breaker in here. I don't know if you've seen that. The newer panels would have one big main
Sure.
breaker.
Yeah, the house we sold had a main breaker.
Yeah, well, see, this one doesn't have one, okay? So what you've got to do is, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and that would turn off everything in the house. So you'd have to turn off all 4 of these breakers to turn the electric off in the house.
Okay.
So it would still, if it wasn't a Federal Pacific, it wouldn't meet code. It's just a split bus, okay?
Yeah.
Then this breaker here turns on everything. You see how it comes out of this breaker here,
Yeah.
and it comes down to this bus here?
Oh, yeah.
And it feeds all these breakers down here.
Okay. Well, except that one.
Except for that one, okay?
All right.
So you got that right there. So that gives you an indication of whether, now the new ones, you'll have one main breaker, and all these would feed off of that main breaker,
Okay.
okay?
Mhm.
So sometimes we have people call, and this breaker will trip, they'll overload it, and they say, well, my dryer works, but the rest of my house won't work. Okay?
So, and not specifically, but, where do we have ballpark? What would this, what are we looking at?
You're looking at about $1,000.
Okay. All right. Well, it's good to have somebody that knows what they're doing and talking about it.
Well, I worked at LG&E for about 35 years.
Oh,
so
did you?
yes.
Oh, great.
Okay, thanks very much, Dan. I'm just going to take this and I'm going to, let me just switch it over.